you solo cast. My friend through the internets, with mutual friends as well. That other Wing Chun guy, Topher. Topher, thanks for joining me today. We kind of
What's
run.
up?
You actually get to run with them. Our mutual buddy, the great Sifu Alex Richter, our mutual buddy Goju Spencer, who's done some amazing artwork for both of us,
Absolutely.
and then busting Mikey's Wavos as well.
All the
So
time.
all the time, so much fun. So I'm super excited to get another Chunner on the podcast, and talk about life, training, etc., etc. But just like all of our guests, would you tell us your origin story and what got you started and inspirations, etc.?
Sure. Going way, way back, started in high school. I went to an art school, and being in art school, they didn't have typical sports or anything. They had two options for phys ed. You could do weightlifting, or you could do taekwondo.
Taekwondo.
And I said, hold on, hold on. So my choice is lifting heavy wheels or kicking people in the face. We're going with kicking people in the face.
Nice.
Um, so I got to start there. I did taekwondo for about 2 years. Got a good foundation. I would say people always ask me, they're like, "Oh, taekwondo," you hear the take one's do and the McDojo nonsense constantly and all that, and I say, I have to say, taekwondo gave me a good foundation of movement,
Yes.
and more importantly, it taught me how to learn martial arts.
Awesome.
In like okay, A, B, C, like get this down, get this down, get this down. And that's, I would say, has served me my entire martial arts career of like, now I know how to take in information. But then going into my senior year of high school, I had a friend who did Northern Long Fist. He did Mahjong Lawhorn.
Mm.
Um, for those who don't know, want a good like 2 cents on Mahjong, look up Mahjong Lohan on Instagram. My good friend Ibrahim curates a great page full of great content and history. But that was the style I did. Um, but around high school, I'll never forget. Like end of my, I only went to high school for 3 years, so like I didn't have a sophomore year. I had a freshman year, a sophomore junior year, and a senior year.
Oh wow.
But going into my at the end of my what would be my sophomore junior year, um, my friends were like, "Hey, have your dad call you off for the last day of school because nobody wants to go on the last day anyway." And I was like, "Cool, what are we gonna do?" And they go, "Well, you want to watch a bunch of kung fu movies and then come to my kung fu school afterwards?" I'm like, "All right."
Yes.
So that's what we did. We had like a kung fu movie marathon at my house. We also learned the magic of Diet Coke and Mentos. Uh,
Fantastic.
but then we went to my friend's kung fu school. I got to meet a Sifu, and I just was like, "Yo, this is some cool stuff." Um, and part of me graduating high school in 3 years meant that I needed to double up on certain academics. For some reason, they insist that you take math and they insist that you take so much literature. I don't know
Yep.
why. Completely useless nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no, but I didn't have the elective space to take taekwondo for the third year. So my parents were like, "Well, do you like the kung fu school?" I was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, it's around the corner from our house anyway, so we'll sign you up there so you can keep doing martial arts, and then
Awesome.
you can graduate and all that stuff." I was like, "Cool." So that's what we did. And then I did that for a good number of years. I also ended up taking up Wu style Tai Chi while I was there,
Oh wow.
because that's
Cool.
the two things they taught. They had Northern Long Fist and Wu style Tai Chi. I did that for a good number of years. And then it became really pressing that I needed to finish a college degree,
Sure.
um, for
Sure.
reasons. um,
Yeah.
so it was like, well, I gotta stop training, and I need to actually buckle down and finish a degree.
Real
Um,
quick, was that
yep.
school? Were they based out of Houston, Texas? Do you know?
No,
Okay.
no. And the school I think you're thinking of is in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's
Yep,
right. I've
that'd
got. I've
be
got a. I've got a buddy that does that lineage, and they also do I think it's the Fu style of Bagua, if I'm
Fu
not
style
mistaken.
bagua. Yes, they do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
actually learned that. So that would be Master Johnny Kwan Ming Lee's
Yes,
White Leopard. So
yes.
the school that's here in Bradenton was one of his schools at one point,
Okay,
and then they kind of broke off at one point. But
sure.
yes, it's actually is, yeah, same group of people.
Awesome.
Um, so um, decided to get my degree, got my degree done, and then said, "Hey, I need to get back into the martial arts. I'm done. I got my I did my time."
Hmm.
um, and a buddy of mine was kind of teaching Wing Chun at the time. Had like a little like study group going on. Said, "Yeah,
Cool.
come on, come hang out with me." I was like, "All right, cool." And we were hanging out together. We were training. We were doing Wing Chun together for a little bit. He showed me the basics, showed me the ropes. And one day he goes, there's a guy down in Sarasota who teaches Wing Chun. Small group kind of thing going on. I contacted him. He invited us to come out and see him. And so we drove down Tuesday night. It was a Tuesday night. Drove down, met him at a local park. Him and a couple of his students, and he said, "All right, cool. Let's train." And it was just one of the best experiences I ever had. Just
That's
training.
awesome.
I'll never forget. The class, we made a small circle. Class opened with Sulam Tao. Everybody just does a nice slow Sulam Tao to open, and then punches. And by punches, I mean punches, and I mean tons of them.
Awesome.
Uh,
That's great.
Kind of this again was my introduction to my Sifu Renatin. Um, Everybody makes a circle. Everybody starts punching. You count to 10 off of your one hand. So one count is two punches, and then everybody counts to 10, and it goes around in a circle, and it keeps going around, and it
Mhm.
goes around some more, and it keeps going until Sifu says stop. Um, and you don't know when that's going to be, and God forbid he gets distracted. Because there had been many a times training with him where we'd be training at his house and he'd get called into the kitchen or something because something was going wrong, and you don't stop until he says to stop.
Sure.
And you always
Sure.
have one of us like looking like, hey, is he coming back?
Y-
um,
Arms are getting fatigued.
Arms are getting fatigued. And the thing for us is that there's three sets of punches you do that for. So you have just single punches,
Sure.
then you
Okay.
have double punches,
Awesome.
and then you have triple punches. So that's the
Oh,
same thing for each section. So
okay.
we'd spend a good, 20 some minutes just punching the crap out of our arms. And of course for him it was, yeah, I have to get your arms relaxed somehow.
That's that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yep.
Because when you fatigue the muscle, you
Yep.
have to rely on the structure.
Yep.
Awesome.
That's
Awesome.
absolutely his point. He says, "Look, I gotta fatigue you somehow." And he says, "Punches is the best way to do it." And he told us a story. He said, "You guys are lucky. Back in Macau, training with Ho Kan Ming was a smoker, and he'd start the class. He'd have everybody punch, and he'd walk out on the balcony and have a cigarette. He'd walk
Yeah.
in, and he'd look around, and you hope he didn't turn back around for another one,
There's
because
another cigarette.
for
Yeah.
another cigarette.
Yeah.
So,
I love it.
um, but and then we'd get into class, we'd break off, we'd do footwork, we'd do kicks, leg exercises, and then it was two-person drilling time. My Sifu would run his class kind of the old school way he learned it in Macau and in Hong Kong. Kind of, it looks chaotic, but it's not really. Everybody's working with everybody. You're working Pak Sao drill, Lap Sao drill, Chi Sao, Dan Chi
Hmm.
Sao,
Hmm.
um, different sets. And Sifu's walking around making corrections, or he's pulling you aside to do the form review real quick, make sure your forms look good. And then he'd call everybody together and you'd have like a group practice, or this, that, or the other. Or he'd do, okay, everybody's had a good practice. So make a big line. You stand there. You're the Wing Chun guy. Everybody else, don't do Wing Chun. Attack. um, yep.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
awesome. I love it. I love
you just
it.
have a line of people feeding you. Once you got to the end of the line, it was your turn to get in line. Somebody else's turn. Um, Different things like that. And yeah, I was one of those where I just absolutely fell in love with Wing Chun. It was physical, mental, all of it, the whole nutshell, the whole 9 yards. Um, doing everything,
How many
doing
years
it all.
has that been now, Toph?
10, a little over 10 years now.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So,
And you work with the whole camping group.
mhm.
Do you get to visit, cousins and aunts and uncles and sisters and brothers and all the other stuff?
Yes. It's one of those. So, for instance, we always have an open invite to Macau. Um,
That's great.
it's in fact, actually, one of my C-Box messaged me the other day and says, "Yo, when are you coming back? We miss you. Miss you. You miss me. They miss my sea hangs." So, like, two of my two sea hangs, Chris and Toby, both got to go last year. They went for a quick. I say quick. It was like 10 days. They were over there. Visit. Got to see everybody. Got to train. So that was really, it's really good. But yeah, we do that, and then of course here in the states, the biggest group is Augustine Fong's group,
Right.
and we know quite a few of each other. It's one of those, and there's open invites. But I also have a sea silk, two of them, one in Chicago, Jack Chu, and then Thomas Joyce. And Thomas has actually come down to Florida. He's like, "Hey, I'm like an hour away. You want to get together in Chisao?" And I was like, "Sure." He drove up and Chisao. He brought a buddy of his who's a Kali and Arnis guy, and I
Oh,
was like,
nice.
he was checking our stuff out. He's like, "Yeah, that's cool. Hey, you want to do some knife stuff?" He popped out some training knives and showed me some cool like knife stuff. So like all of that stuff, and
Nice.
yeah, but yeah, it was one of those like just took up my time. I ate, slept, breathed. That's all I did, and just went full hand. My Sifu was fond of saying, "You and your Sihang Pete get lives, like date girls, do something else." Like,
Now,
um,
now, save your
but
money. Spend it on kung fu.
yeah, yeah, and then like in 2017, he Sifu was like, "Hey, you know what? Let's go to Hong Kong. Let's go. Let's just go." Planned a trip, and I've like spent 10 days in Hong Kong and Macau. It was phenomenal.
Awesome.
I got to train with one of Yip Man's disciples, a guy named Roland Tong, who unfortunately passed away
Yeah,
last week.
yeah, last week. Yeah, what a bummer.
Um,
Yeah, I lost to everyone in the Wing
yeah,
Chun community. Yeah.
yeah. I'm just a dude who was so generous with his time and knowledge, and I remember we came in, and it was me, my C hang Alan, and Alan's child Alex. We went in, greeted us, was making tea, and he's like making tea, and he goes, "This is Yip Man's favorite tea." It was some blend of tea that Yip Man apparently that was his favorite blend to drink.
Oh,
Makes
that's
us
cool.
tea and more tea, and him and Renee are talking Cantonese to each other. Met one of Wang Chung Lung's students who was just hanging out there, and
That's
then
awesome.
met another one of Yip Man's disciples, a guy named Peter Pang, and just so sweet and so generous with his time, telling us stories, and then goes, "Okay, what do you want to know? Anything you want to know? Right now, right here and right now. I'll tell you. I'll do it with anything."
That's
And
awesome.
we're all kind of like looking at each other. I'm just like, will you correct my Sulam towel? And he goes, "Okay." Sat there and just like 20 minutes just worked on my Sulam towel with me, and then showed me some G sound. He goes, "You need to develop the elbow like this. Let me show you." And he goes into the Dan Chi Sao position. And he goes, "Okay, hit me." I go, All right." And I've posted the photo of it of me I'm in Tonsao and he's in Fuxao and he's just sitting there. He goes, "Go ahead and hit me." And when I tell you I couldn't leave the Tonsao position to do the palm, I couldn't even move my arm. It
Sure.
just stopped me right there in the spot. Just no, no, no. And he looks at me, he goes, "Come on, kid, are you gonna hit me or not?" I'm like, sir. He goes, "Yeah, that's right."
The old man with the skills. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. That's awesome.
Made some wonderful friends there. His one of his top students, Danny Chan, is such a sweet, good friend of mine. Another burger enthusiast. So you gotta love burger enthusiasm. But he is. I got to cheese out with him, and just those folks over there, man. They're no joke. They know what they're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
They're no joke, and it's such a good training and all that. And so, like, that's as far as the Wing Chun end of things, like, that's the origin story, man. In recent years, I have taken up a little bit of Shotokan karate with Rick
I
Hutton
love
sensei.
that. I love that. That's
Um,
fantastic.
it's it's one of those, like, I live in a really strange crossroads of the world. I don't know what it is about, like, the Bay Area of Florida. Um, Rick Hutton is here, and we're talking not just a great karateka, but arguably one of, like, the most notoriously well-loved and respected karateka in the
Yeah.
who's just making it around right now.
Mhm.
And then you have people like Jim Arvanites, the father of modern pancration,
Yep.
kicks around here.
Is he still
Um,
alive? God bless him. Has he still got the curly hair?
he still rocks the hair, man. He's it's funny, I'll never forget one day I'm at the burger shop. And I'm taking orders at the window. This couple comes up, or this lady and her son comes up, and there's a guy with them. And I'm looking, I'm like, no, no way. Guy's like, oh, I'll take a chicken sandwich. I'm getting a chicken sandwich. And I'm looking and I'm like, the lady comes up to get something else. I go, ma'am, can I ask you a question? She goes, sure. I go, is that Jim Arvanites? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure.
That's hilarious. That's amazing. That is amazing. Yeah, you guys in Florida. I mean, I hate to say this, but when it comes to per capita, and maybe it's the cold weather, maybe it's the bad drivers, maybe it's the traffic, maybe it's the mountains
Yeah,
up here, but Colorado is a little bit of a barren wasteland. And I don't mean just for Wing Chun, I mean Kung Fu in general. You've got about maybe 25 or 30 people at most for the state
yeah,
that are teaching kung fu. Now we have some fantastic karate. We
yeah,
have some really great aikido. We have a few great judo schools. So the Japanese side is really covered. Filipino,
yep,
Indonesian. We've got some amazing world class people too.
yep.
But
Well,
it's kind of the wasteland for kung fu.
and like again, talking about being a word crossroads, you mentioned uh Saotome Sensei, the last living Ushideshi of Ueshiba Sensei,
Ueshiba, yeah,
it lives here in Sarasota.
yeah.
He's Rick's Aikido teacher, and I've met him a few times. Like I've sat down and like had meals with him, and just like
That's
didn't know what to
insane.
do.
That's
And
insane.
it's just like you have like it's just one of those where you're like, oh, okay, like tantamount to martial arts royalty. It's just like right over there.
So, question for you. So,
Mhm.
what made you decide to take up karate? Was it? I know it wasn't dissatisfaction with Wing Chun. I know that.
Nope.
I won't speak for you, but I'll speak for you on that one. So, what was it
So
that decided? Hey, let's try this.
okay, there's two kind of big factors to this. The first one was most of my friends are karateka. Like
Mine too.
outside of like it's I teach Wing Chun. I have all my C hangs. We train together and all that. But like the majority of my non Wing Chun friends are karateka. Um,
Mine too.
and it was like one of those where I'm like, well, what I have an excuse one night a week to go hang out with my friends. um,
Awesome.
and
Awesome.
but the second piece to that is Rick Hutton Sensei understands body movement and body mechanics in a way few other people do. His ability to express movement, power, dynamism, um, and to just do it and use it and show people how to move transcends karate. It is an idea that is pure movement mechanic. Doesn't matter what martial art you do, you will glean some wisdom from it. Of it doesn't matter what art you practice, spend an afternoon with him, do a seminar, and 2 hours later you will be so much better for it than
I love that. I
anyone.
love that.
And he's also just a really rad dude who's like who just loves he has a deep love for karate and a deep philosophy towards it. But he's also like really like, hey man, I saw this Wing Chun video. Let's talk about it. Like, he's just one of those dudes who loves to like talk martial arts and like
Mhm.
he understands and he'll look at other martial arts and go, ah, that guy was onto something. And just curious, like it's that curiosity we should all maintain regardless of what art we do. And then another kind of piece to that is one of my C hangs, Terry, was a ballroom dance instructor, and he said
Yeah. Yeah.
he said, "You know what the secret to getting really good at a dance is? If you wanna make your waltz better, go learn a different kind of dancing."
Yes,
And he says, "You'll trick your neural pathways into just improving in a whole new way." And that's kind of the idea of like, okay, well,
I
how
love
do I
it.
improve? You can just do this one thing and you'll get really good at it. And I know plenty of people who do that, but there is a neurological science to different movement pattern and like learn making the body adapt and do different movement patterns.
I
So
love that because it kind of takes
yep,
it out of okay, I'm learning a Japanese style, I'm learning a Chinese style. It's like
yep,
no, you're like you just goes back to what you just said at
yep,
the beginning. You're learning how to learn,
yep,
and because the stances, because the postures, because the hands positions are different, because the force generation is
mhm,
going to be different through the body. You know, your understanding of how you are moving, the relationship with yourself and the other person that you're working with to
yep,
help your partner get better is going to be
yep,
different.
yep.
And I love that. That's so good. I think that's so refreshing.
Yeah,
That's so
well,
refreshing.
and I know with you, like the Xingyi and Bagua, man, like it's like I having done Xingyi and Bagua before, I'm like, no, that this is a whole different feeling of everything.
Yeah, yeah. It was strange. I'll do real quick so that because it's
Yep,
your show, but I always like to have the interaction where we're having the
yeah,
conversation. You know, finding Owen's group was kind of a beautiful accident out of a dark space. I had moved down to the Front Range from the mountains for a girlfriend, and we didn't work out. And after 9 months, you know, we kind of separated. I was in a really dark space, and I had dabbled for 2 summers in Pakme.
okay,
Yeah, and I was actually coming from Grand Lake over a mountain pass once a week into Longmont, which I live now, which is strange to think of. And it was like a 240-mile round trip, but I didn't have to worry about expenses too much because I was living at home, a college boy, that kind of
yeah,
stuff. So I could afford to do that. And my Pak Mei, like Sihing, the number one student, him and I stayed friends forever. He's 30 years my elder, and I'm 45 this year, so you can do the math there. And I swear, Topher, it was one of those things where it was like something through the force.
yep,
And Steve calls me up and he's like, "Hey, man, I heard you had a bad breakup. I hear you're in a dark space. I know you're in Loveland. I was living in Loveland at the time, which is 30 miles up the road." He's like, "It's a bit of a trip into Boulder. I know you're pretty sold on the Wing Chun, but it's the group of people. It's not the style. I want you to come work with these people. They're kind, they're generous, they're effective." And he repeats kind. He's like, "These are good people to work with." And it helped me get out of my shell. And after about the fifth lesson, when this 120-pound woman threw my 225-pound butt to the ground with a joint lock and shingy, she like does this whole body mechanic that I
mhm,
wasn't used to at the time. I'm like, hold on, there's something there. I want to check
yep,
this out. I like this group of people. I like the training. And yeah, I mean, the Shingi and the Bagua do nothing but help improve my Wing Chun. And I don't try to mix it. I don't know. I
yeah,
don't know about you, but I pretty much have a shelf. It's like, okay, Wing Chun's over there. There's my Shingi shelf. There's my Bagua shelf. I try to
yep,
separate everything as much as possible and
yep,
honor the systems and my teachers that way too.
yep, yep. No,
So
I keep one way, keep the other way. Is there overlap? Because yes, there is. Because two arms, two legs, like
yes, sir.
that just
Yes,
is what
sir.
it is. But it is very much they in some ways will influence the other one inherently. Like again, neural pathways only work so many different directions, and 10 years of Wing Chun, you can't undo that in a single class. You know,
Yeah, that's right.
it
That's
just it
exactly right. Yep.
so,
Can you
but it is.
would you share with us
Mhm.
just off the top of your head, what is something from Wing Chun that you feel has helped your karate, and what is something from karate that you feel might have enhanced or helped your Wing Chun, or just given you a light switch to go, aha, maybe that's what's going on here.
Um, that's a good approach, good question, and
We
I
can
would
come back to
say,
it. We
oh
can come
no,
back.
no, no,
Okay.
no. There's it is. Um, especially when doing two-person and kumite kind of things in karate, the ability for me to stick and pin with my elbow, low elbow pressure, and all that, it.
Yes.
I'll never forget. I was at a training seminar. It's actually coming up this February. Same seminar. Rick does the Winter Keiko here in Sarasota, and 2 years ago I was doing the Winter Keiko, and we were doing a drill, and it was something where you punched, but the punch was a low towards the stomach or solar plexus, and you trapped the person's arm. And I was like, okay, boom, boom, and just pinning this guy's arm over and over and over again.
Hmm.
And at the time, I'm just like a little white belt, and he's looking at me. He's like, "You have really good elbow position, like really good elbow positioning." I'm like,
I
"Yeah,
love
I
it.
know."
I love it.
So,
I love it.
um, but I'll say, on the karate end, um, in particular, especially when you look at BG and power generation in BG, working working kind of the Shotokan kata, and that kind of power generation, and like that idea of whipping and ba bam, ba bam, applying that to BG really, especially, in BG, the way I interpret it and the way I understand it is the ability to strike from whatever position you're in, and the
Yes.
ability to just
Yes.
move. Like, I'm in this position, now I need to move to that position. Ba-bum,
Hmm.
ba-bum. So, Shotokan, like, you take like Heian Shodan, the very first one, you low block, you punch. Then you immediately go right behind you and low block and punch again. There's no like reset, go, go. It's like from here to here. So how do I get from here to here in the most efficient way possible and just whip and deliver power? And Rick, the way Rick does it, he has this explanation of, you go, go. Most people will like draw in, turn, step, block. He goes, no, no, no. It's a single clean movement.
Yeah.
Try and make it a clean like whip. And he goes, it's shoulder, elbow, hand. And I was like, oh, shoulder, elbow, hand, just like in BG. Like
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
idea of like, you don't stop. It's a clean movement across. You're just in this position, then you're in that position. So that idea of being able to hit and move from whatever position you're in, that concept in BG, just working the Shotokan kata, working
I
with
love
Rick,
it.
it just the two is like, oh, now this is making this click even more. Um,
Yeah. I love that. Love that. I hear some of the, I'm hearing that from you. And I also feel like there's maybe some of the long pull in there too,
a little bit,
where
little bit.
it's that whole body connected and it's okay. Am I hitting over here? Am I hitting over here? But
Yep.
it's gotta be that whole frame moving
Well,
unified.
yep. Well, and it's funny because speaking of working, training the long pole, in karate right now, Rick has us working the Joe, which is like the exact opposite kind of stick of it. The long pole's 9 feet long and the Joe's like four
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
But fundamentally, stick is stick.
Yeah.
Stick is stick.
Hmm.
How do you work the stick? And it's funny because you can tell what side I work the long pole on, because like when I work the Joe, I'm like, if I'm right side forward, it's like bam, bam, and they're like, oh man, really good. But I switch to my left side, and they're like, huh, where'd it go?
That's right. That's right. That's okay. We can't be ambidextrous on everything, I guess. So
I
there
get
has to
that.
be limitations.
Though
So go ahead. Keep going. Keep going.
I will say this: after training Wing Chun, my pool game so much better because that I can do ambidextrously now.
I love it. I
Like I
love
can
it.
take shots left hand, right hand. Pool game on point.
I love it. I love it. Where how about this? What do you think is unique with your group of Hokamming um, and the approach to looking at Wing Chun as a whole? Or maybe it could even be like little sections. It's like, okay, I've worked with some other people from different lineages, and I don't think really people look at this like this.
So I'll approach it like this. I had some similarities between my Sigong and myself. And one of those was we were kind of late in life starters, as far as Wing Chun is concerned. I started when I was 24, 25. He didn't start learning Wing Chun until he was about 29, 30.
Okay.
Um, Neither one of us was ever getting in a ring. We're not going to the UFC, not anytime soon.
Me neither.
Exactly. But what that allowed my Qigong to do was approach Wing Chun from a mechanical and theoretical understanding.
Okay.
Um, he understood Wing Chun on the theoretical and physiological breakdown, like level, top at a top level, because he was never really he knew how to fight with it. And I've heard some pretty cool stories of him defending himself. Um, but he also understood it in a way that was he approached it from a thinking man's perspective, from a almost Shu Tin like in a similar
Mhm.
manner of I'm not going to approach this because I'm going to get into fights. I'm approaching this because I'm truly trying to understand the beauty of the theories at play here and the mechanics. And the way he taught other students, he was one of those guys who understood so well, almost Customato like. Customato
Yeah,
understood boxing in a way that, yes, he himself could box, but he wasn't, the creme de la creme. But who did he end up teaching? Tyson.
absolutely,
And what was
absolutely.
Tyson? Tyson is to
Mhm.
this day a notorious, legendary boxer. But
Yeah,
Customato understood how to teach him boxing so that he could do it. Ho Kai Ming was the same way. Fun fact: my Sigong loved Tyson. Thought Tyson was one of the best Wing Chun practitioners he'd ever seen.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally.
um, but that idea of he was a great coach
Hmm.
because he understood how it worked and how it should be
Hmm.
applied so well. He started later in life. It wasn't going to be, he wasn't going into the BAMO. He
Now
wasn't,
this is Ho Kam Ming
mhm,
that we're talking about. Okay.
that's, yep. Um, so what that then kind of becomes is that his students he raised became not only were they good at the theoretical, but they were young. He's teaching people like my Sifu who are coming to him at 12, 13 years old,
Hmm.
the teenagers who wanted something to do, wanted something athletic to do. Some of them did want to fight. And my Sibak Luming Fai, who is an undefeated fighter,
Hmm.
um, cut his teeth, made a reputation for the school fighting in tournaments. Um, and just he knew how to train good fighters because he understood Wing Chun so well. And I would say in the Hokaming lineage, that's kind of our
Trademark.
MO trademark is that we have maintained a high quality of theoretical understanding. And not to say other lineages don't, please, like for goodness sake, that is not what I'm saying. But I am saying that we have maintained a strong understanding of the theory as well as the core principles of how Wing Chun should function, or can function, or does function. And we do have a good reputation of how to apply it in combat.
Yeah, I've actually, not so much your crew. I don't see a whole lot. I'm gonna have to watch. I've seen a few videos of you guys put
Hmm.
it up, but I've been following Karina for a long time,
Hmm.
and we're hoping to have her on the show at some point. Been
Yep.
buying her weapons and stuff like that, and it was interesting because out of all the lineages that I've seen out there, there are a few that do things that I'm used to. I
Hmm.
won't say the whole Wang Shenlong
Hmm.
system, but Sifu David Peterson, like the way he applies it is very similar to how I've been taught. And
Hmm.
then seeing some of the Augustine Fong guys, I'm like, okay, we have that. That's cool. I don't see this a
Hmm.
whole lot of other places. And one other person I found that was very interesting was our mutual buddy Goju Spencer and the Holian
Spencer.
lineage. And so
Cool.
yeah,
Yep.
we've been talking quite a bit,
Yep.
about that. Well, we were about 7 or 8 months ago, but now he's off in Tokyo taking care of the family, and he's
He's
super busy. You know,
hashtag living his best life.
I know. God bless him. God bless him.
um,
Yeah, but yeah, okay. So the theoretical side of things. So that's where you feel like the creme de la creme is.
Creme de la creme. We have, and I will say this: our lineage has also not deviated too far from what Ho Sigong established it to be and to
Okay.
do. There's not a whole lot of variation. The
Okay.
the biggest variation you'll see is Augustine Fong. Um,
Hmm.
Hoka Ming had kind of 3 periods of teaching similar to his Sifu, Yip Man. He had, like, an early period, and that's kind of where Augustine and my Sifu come from. My Sifu's Augustine
Hmm.
comes from kind of the start of his teaching career in Macau, and my Sifu comes towards the end of that first period. Then he has this middle period, which I'd s is, um, the bulk of where my Sifu learned was into the or late end of the first period and then through that whole middle period. And then he has a late period of teaching, which is when he moved to Toronto. Um, and that's where like my Cecil Jack and all of them come from. They're from the Toronto crew. And so there's like three distinct periods, but with each one of those, there's distinct changes or
Yes.
distinct adaptations that
Yes.
Hokka like if I watch you do something, I know, oh, you learned at this time, you learned at this time, and you learned
Yeah.
at that time. Um, Fundamentally, it's all the same. But it's one of those where within my own lineage, I can almost pinpoint where somebody comes from,
Hmm.
just based on the way they do a certain set of certain moves. I'm like,
Same.
I know when
Same.
you learned. I know when you
Hmm.
learned. Um, I have been lucky enough because I'm just that encyclopedia kind of guy. Jokingly, my Sifu is just like, sometimes I think you know my own culture better than I do. I'm just like, I don't know. I just sit here and read stuff. Um, but that has helped me because I know the early period methods and I know the middle period methods because that's the primarily what my Sifu taught me at first was what that kind of middle period of teaching. So I'd say like from 75 to like 90,
Okay.
91, 92. I know he immigrated around 94 to Toronto. Um, my Sifu had finished learning from him and had moved away at around 89. Um, so that kind of that period in there. Um, but I kind of like I can do the forms, like I can do the early period version of the forms and I can do the middle period version of the forms. There's a few, depending on which form we're talking about, there's a few changes, few tweaks in the choreography.
Yep.
Fundamentally, it's all the same. Like the
Sure.
mechanics are the same. You're using the same pivoting mechanics. You're using the same this, but there's some slight tweaks in the BG and um, Chum Q is more or less the same. Sulam Tao only has one really big, two distinctly different movements. We have a double punch set in our Sulam Tao
Okay.
in the early period version. There's a double
Okay.
punch set, and there's also a Jut Sao in the early period set that's not in the middle period set. They got rid of the double punch and the Jut Sao. So uh, the double punch comes from here. The hands come around, up, sink, Busao, Gum Sao, double punch, or it's actually not a Gum Sao, it's a Fuk Sao, double punch, Gum Sao. And
Hmm.
then where you normally would just go 45-degree Pak Sao,
Uh-huh.
and then center, and then Chong Sao, we used to do 45-degree Jut Sao, Chong Sao.
Okay.
Some lineages still do that. You can tell, but it's at some point Hoka Ming said, just go back to center and then Chong Sao. Don't worry about Jut Sao. That you get tut later. That happens later in the system. And
Sure.
it's one of those where I'm like, oh, I understand the like why that
Hmm.
change happened because in all in all honesty, the Jets out here is kind of an awkward wrist movement,
Hmm.
and when you're trying to get beginners to really understand their elbow, to like all of a sudden, oh, do this wrist movement real quick, like,
Hmm. Yeah. It's
develop the
so
elbow first.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's so fascinating. I think sometimes that, and Sifu Mayer has a really interesting, my Sifu has a really interesting way of looking at it because there's only two things that I know that he's told me. He's like, Wong Q changed one thing and I changed one thing. It's funny too, though, because I believe Wong Q had different teaching periods as well. And I think he more, a little bit like Yip Man did, taught to the student. He taught the
Absolutely.
system to the student. When he worked with Dr. Koo, who had a big presence in Canada for many years, Dr. Koo was a nuclear engineer, and Wong Koo was a civil engineer in Hong Kong. And he actually worked for the British government. But this was in Holland when Dr. Koo met him, and he was finishing up his PhD. So he taught him like the engineering, but Ku was also interested in the internal mechanics. And so Wong Q taught him some of that. Where my Sifu wasn't interested in woo woo at all. But when he met him, my Sifu was a architect. And so they had the more mechanical side of it and the theoretical side. But the thing that I can show you real quick, the thing that Wong Q, one of the things that he changed
Mhm.
is our first movement is actually
Mhm.
a Jeet Sao. It's not the heart punch
Mhm.
in the Sienam Tao. Because he's like, I've already got 3 heart punches at the end. But it's not the heart or the back
Mhm.
punch as some people will call it. So that's one. And then Sifu Meyer, right in the beginning of the Wooden Man, instead
Mhm.
of reaching for the far hand on the bong sao, he'll do the close one. And he's like, I just have to
Okay.
keep it in my mind. But that's about all. But it's so funny because I see other people's forms and I'm like, they're totally different. But I don't mind because I'm okay with different forms as long as you can explain the theory behind it. Because I
Exactly.
think I think too many people are mesmerized by these shapes and not enough by, well, what's the theory and the principle
What's the
behind
point?
those? Yes, that's
Um,
exactly right.
and it's one of those things where change is inevitable. I'll never forget my Sifu always told me, he said, I'm going to teach you this. I'm also going to explain how Hokenming taught it to me so you understand both.
Yes.
And he
Yes.
said, one day you're going to teach your student and you might change something.
Yeah.
Tell your student what you changed and why,
Yes.
and then explain my way, and then explain your Sigung's way so that
Mm-hmm.
they understand. So
Absolutely.
so that they know this was you who changed it. This doesn't come from me. It doesn't come from their Sigung. Their Sifu made a change, and their Sifu made a change for a reason. Just like I'm telling you right now, I made a change and I changed it for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I know in our Sulum Tao, there's a certain way we do certain moves. And I asked Sifu, so what's this for? And he goes, didn't used to be there. I put that there. I go, what is it for? So for instance,
I love it. I love it. Uh-huh.
when we come here in the double fan sao, the fan sao into the double, he goes, I want you to go like this, palms open, and I want you to close the palms, jut sao, bu sao, bu sao. And he said, when I learned it, it was just this. You went here, jut
Mm-hmm.
sao, bu sao. I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, then what's with the hands opening? Because I know some lineages, they do like a talk sao. And he goes, no, no talk sao. He says, I kept finding that beginners, when they went like this, got really focused in their fingers and their wrists and couldn't do the juts out. And he said, so I just had them go like this and shake their hands out real quick. And I was like, oh,
Water on the hands to get the
yeah,
movement right. I love it.
yeah.
I
And
love it.
he says, that was me. I made that change.
I love
I
it.
was like, oh, okay. So it's things like that. And there is an importance to that of, I think, keeping record of things like
Yes.
that. Like if we understand where the altercations happen, and we can understand why the person does it that way, it's only going to better serve our students. And it might better serve somebody else who's struggling in that part of the system and goes, well, why does that guy do it that way? Oh, well, that makes sense. Maybe that can help. And this gets into the bigger picture. I made a commentary on a Facebook post, Instagram post not too long ago. And I said, our lineage is our foundation and it should be our guiding principle, but we shouldn't allow it to entrap our minds into the way we do things.
Amen.
Um, we we will make altercations and that's okay, but let the principles of your lineage guide you. Stick to those principles, but if you don't let it stop you from making an alteration that might actually benefit your development. Don't let it be a hindrance to your development. Let it guide you towards a benefit in the change in the development. And
Or you're
that's
teaching. Or you're
or you're teaching.
teaching how to be a better teacher. Yeah. I
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, go. I love this. I love it.
Oh
I was
well,
just going to ask you, do you think that this is one of the problems that Wing Chun has having a conversation with Wing Chun, not only different lineage to lineage, but lineage inside of lineage?
mhm,
Oh,
absolutely.
we're this lineage and those guys are this lineage, but we don't like those guys in this lineage because they don't do that. And
Yep.
everyone's so entranced with hand position and how the form's done that they're not
And
looking at what makes up the form.
I will tell you, I'll give you a personal firsthand experience that involves our good friend Sifu Alex Richter.
Yeah.
Um, he was doing his ITC. I think this is 2001, 2002.
Hmm.
Had to be 2001. Um, Things had kind of sort of opened back up. People could travel again, and I was, back train. My seafood. We were finally back to in-person training, but I didn't really have any sea hangs around. Um, just pandemic related life
So
changes and
this
all
was
that.
2020, 2021.
Yeah, 2020, 2021. Yep.
Gotcha.
And I was sitting there, I was like, well, now I'm kind of I'm the senior most person here, and that's fine, working with the beginners and all that, and then working with my seafood. And I said, I really want to go train with some advanced people. I want to
Yes.
go train with people who are better than me. And Alex had been posting about the ITC, and I shot him a message. I was like, hey, is there space for non WT Lung Ting people? And he said, yeah, keep about 5 spots open. Throw in an application. We'll make things work out. So cool. All right, let's go. Told my Sifu, I said, hey Sifu, I got a friend up in New York who does a week-long training, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week,
Oh,
4 hours on the weekend.
yeah.
I said, they're Lung Ting lineage, but I really want to go. And he said, yeah, sure, that's fine. You're gonna have a good time. Like my Sifu's was like, cool, you're gonna have a fun time. Um,
Awesome.
um, Went up, and it was just one of those. I've known Alex for a goodly amount of time, since 2015, I think,
Oh, wow.
2016, somewhere in there. Actually, maybe even a little earlier than that, but 2015, really. Um, the Instagrams, really, in all honesty, truthfully, through Big Sean Madigan. Um,
Yeah. God bless him.
Big Sean was a teacher of a friend of mine, and that's how I got to meet connected to Big Sean. And I'll never forget Big Sean. It's like, hey, I'm starting a podcast with a buddy of mine. Will you give us the subscribe and follow? I said, sure, man, absolutely, for you, Big Sean, anything. Um, and believe you me, when Alex says Big Sean was that guy, he was that guy who would pick up his phone for anybody and give you 20 minutes of his time at any point. He absolutely was. He 100% was. I remember I was driving home one day and I was like, I had a question. I don't know. All right, I'm gonna call Big Sean. Threw him a call. He's like, "Hey, brother, how are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm good. I have a question for you." He goes, "Shoot." And I'm
Awesome.
talking to him, and he goes, "Cool. All right, brother. I gotta hang up. My wife wants to watch Dancing with the Stars." I'm like, "All right, cool." Um, Big Sean was absolutely that guy. He was open for everybody. Alex 100% when he's like, "I can't believe Sean would just hand out his number on a podcast." He was, because
He
he would
would,
talk to
he would,
anybody.
I
He
love
was
it.
just he was every bit that guy. But that's how I got connected to Alex, was through Big Sean and the Dudes of Kung Fu podcast. And I remember one time Alex was down here in Florida, shot him a message, was like, "Hey, let's go hang out." And he's like, "All right, cool, let's hang out." So we hung out, had a great time. I'll never forget, because he's like, "Hey, Sean's sick. Do you want to be my co-host this week?" And I was like, "All right, let's do it." So I did the first time I was ever on a podcast was with Alex doing an episode of Dudes of Kung Fu.
That's fantastic.
Um, And then, but so, fast forward, him and I kept in touch and all this. I'm like, oh yeah, one day I'll get up to New York. He's like, yeah, let's do it. Finally went up to New York. Um, he's like, he gave me a call before I came up, and he goes, hey, what do you want to work on while you're up here? He
Ah,
goes,
beautiful.
he
Beautiful.
goes, I have kind of like, the way I do it is I have this group that's doing Chum Q stuff. I have this group that's doing BG stuff. I have this group that's going to be doing this. I said, BG stuff sounds cool. I'm always working BG. And it's this cool. I'll put you in the BG group. I get up there. He puts me in the BG group. Uh, and there is a merit to, first of all, just, I'm here. We're going to do things these people's way.
Yes. Amen.
Um,
Amen. 100%.
it is absolutely not about like, it was one of those, I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to go up. I'm just going to do things their way and absorb what they have to say.
Mhm.
And I will tell you, that was one of the best weeks of training I've ever had in my life.
Awesome.
Made a ton of friends, super friendly group of people, built tons of bridges. That's the important part, is like friendships and bridges. I talk to so many of the New York people constantly, like back and forth and back and forth. I love the New York group so much. And it's one of those where I always get messages like, hey man, when are you coming back up? I'm like, I'll be up when I can. New York is an expensive place.
Yeah. As
New
a matter of
York
fact,
is
I really feel like if I ever, and I hope to, because there are two. I'll tell you live. I'll tell you live right now. So this year I will be picking up one or two of Alex's books,
Mhm,
and there are two things that I would love to train with him, and I think he's brilliant for inventing. One is he's like, I realized that there was a threshold for certain people coming to my class that were wanting some self defense. And so I've got these drills that tackle certain self defense scenarios
mhm.
that they can get good at. And then when they feel safe and can have the time to do the slower training, then they go into the more classical Chinese. And I'm like, I love that. I think that's brilliant. And then the other one is he's like, and this is actually said on our podcast. We had a 2-part great episode with Steve Fu Alex on Kung Fu Conversations. And he's like, I knew enough Cantonese. I was walking with another student that was Caucasian that knew enough Cantonese when he was still working in Hong Kong with Sifu Leung Ting, and Lung Ting had these special, I can blow almost anybody out of their stances with these chi
The
sao tricks. Yeah. And
the
he's
kung
like
foolery.
the kung foolery, right? And he's like, well, you're gonna teach these guys. He's like, no, they won't get it. And Alex, and I love the determination about Alex.
Yep.
He's like, oh, really? So he's like, so I had all these videos, I had all this footage of him from his DVDs, from in person, from seminars, et cetera, et cetera. And he's like, and I pulled out, he's like, I noticed these 10 patterns. And then I saw what the setup was, what the transitions were. And then I kept writing it out and dialing it in. And he's like, and then I taught myself. And I'm like, oh, that is somebody that wants it. So I
Yep.
would love to goof around with those. And then just pretty much anything with them. I've just, I
Yep.
respect the hell out of him. And, him and Big Sean, in a weird way, they saved my bacon because, during COVID, Topher, I went from having a bus that had 80 people on one trip to one person in an 8-hour shift. And
Wow.
it was Twilight Zone. And then what I took for my schedule was known as uh, the standby bus. So I
Mhm.
called it the David Hasselhoff bus. So God forbid somebody get into a wreck or they get sick on their bus. I would either take my bus out and drive their shift, or I would give them my bus and wait with the broken down bus. But it was a 40-hour week. I got to read. I trained on the bus. I listened to
Yep.
music because I'm all by myself. I'm like,
Yep.
maybe I'll start listening to podcasts. And Dudes of Kung Fu was the first one. And I fell in love
Yep.
with both those ding dongs. And I've been
Yep.
fans of them since. And God rest Big Sean Madigan, because
Yep.
I wish I could have met him. I think I talked to him once or twice through the internet,
Yep.
and gone too soon.
Yeah. No, 100%. But yeah, it was just going to New York and training with Alex. And Alex is every bit as good as you think he is. He
Mhm.
just is.
Oh.
He's a dude who eats and breathes what he does.
Mhm.
He is an excellent trainer. He's an excellent Sifu. And more importantly, his team, his students, Craig, Nicole, Jose, Mikey, everybody there is just top of their game. They're just on it. They know it. They train it, but they are friendly. They are generous with it. And it's not a ego trip or anything. It's you are here to get better at this thing, and we want
Mhm.
you to get better at that thing.
Yeah.
And I would say, getting back to your original question of what's the problem with Wing Chun, I actually am in kind of full agreement with Alex of not only is it this bizarre siloed approach for people who may not even be alive anymore's
Yeah.
hostilities towards each other.
Yeah.
It's we are literally carrying grudges of people we may have probably never even met for some reason.
Mhm.
It's peer pressure from our ancestors that we don't need.
Mhm.
But it's also in not being willing to update the training methodologies.
What?
Like,
Okay. Okay. I've got a question. What is something,
mm,
and if you want to ask, I'm more than willing to share too. What is something that you've worked on to update the training methodologies?
a codified teaching system. And
Yay.
ABC, like
I
it's
love it.
a
I love it.
document. I document like Alex, and Alex at his school has the entire curriculum printed
Hmm.
out on the walls of his school, so students can
Hmm.
walk in and go, "I need to know A, B, and C."
I love it. I do
It
love it.
is, and it is this idea of the old school ways. You just did whatever Sifu taught you. That's how I learned. I
Hmm.
walked into class in my Sifu. We did whatever my Sifu wanted to teach, and some people can learn that way. Most people, especially here in the U.S., cannot.
Hmm.
It's just not how it works. Um, we like structure, we like progression, and more importantly, we like to be able to follow our progression.
Hmm.
Hence, colored belt systems in karate. Why? Because you can see your progression. Oh,
That's
this is
exactly
the
right.
white belt, this is the yellow
Hmm.
belt, this is the orange belt, this is the green belt, this is the blue belt, this is the black, brown belt, this is the black belt, that kind of progression, like the Western mindset of I need to understand where I am in this thing. It takes a very unique kind of mindset to do the old school Hong Kong. I'm just going to do whatever I do, whatever Sifu has me do, and not care about my progression.
Hmm.
There's very few of us who could do it. And I know, like, the me 20 years ago who started martial arts could never have done that. It wasn't until a decade's worth of martial arts training where I went, belts don't matter, rank doesn't matter, none of this matters. It's just the training.
Yes.
But that's the reflection of a decade's worth of work going into another decade's worth of work. It was one of those. I do martial arts for myself, and I don't have to think about rank. I don't have to think about that. I'm not out for a black belt. I'm not out for a title. I'm just doing martial arts because I love martial arts and I want to
Yes.
do that thing. The average Joe coming in walking off the street, however, is looking for self improvement in a way of how am I measuring my growth? That is just the average person's here in the West. That's a very Western kind of thing. And it is, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, people want to know. So you have to, I think, codify things. Even my Seabach Augustine Fong uses a ranking system,
Hmm.
measurable scope of A, B, and C.
Hmm.
Um, that's one thing, Chinese martial arts really need to adopt. The Mahjong school I was at uses a ranking system, and it made it easier to teach. It I need to know these forms, and I need to know these hand techniques. I need to know these throwing techniques. A, B, C. These are the things I need to know to progress, and you get really good at them. Alex has a ranking system at his school. You have the 101, the 201, the 301, 101, 102, 103. Okay, I need to know this, this, and this.
Hmm.
Cool. Now I can test for my this, and I can test for this. He's got a shirt. They use shirts as their instead of belts. Cool. Let's make it modern because you know we don't need fancy sashes, but a t-shirt looks cool.
Yes. Yeah. Totally.
You know,
I'm in. I'm in. I'm
exactly.
in.
So, but it's things like that where have a codified teaching system, but more importantly, review it every year.
Yeah.
I know he puts a ton of work into reviewing his teaching curriculum every year,
Hmm.
um, and making sure that the people he has teaching understand what they're teaching and review it every time. Like, maintaining the tool, maintaining the
Hmm.
methodology. That's important. But also, in a bigger scale, look at modern training, sports medicine, sports science. We live in a golden age of fitness and training that, you know, martial artists should be taking advantage of. Doesn't matter what you do.
100%. 100%.
You know,
Yeah.
yes, we're going back and realizing things like clubs and maces were good for training, like these old school training methods that are coming out of India of like, oh, this is actually really good for muscle, elasticity. Yeah, you have the clubs
Yeah.
right there, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I got my laundry. We'll just leave the laundry. But I'm a big fan of no, I gotta get these. I gotta show you these. So I have a friend, Jack Gillum, who is a 65-year-old um, Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy and a surfer. And so this is the Wave Chi Club. This is made in America out of hemp plastic. And
Nice.
I will tell you, like either before long pole, before knife,
Mhm.
or before any of our forms,
Mhm,
I'll swing these a little bit
mhm.
and just open up the wrists, the shoulders,
Yep.
all this. I agree with you.
But,
Yes.
and here's the thing, you look at kettlebell training, and
Hmm.
then, a book I'd recommend everybody look up, Hojo Undo. You
Yes.
can find it on Amazon,
Hmm.
but look at what they're doing in Hojo Undo and tell me, how is that not kettlebell training?
You
How is that
betcha.
not, it's we've taken some old school ways of training and updated them.
Yes.
And then we've also used modern science to find new ways of training to maximize things. Um, you know, cardio training, rowing, these kinds of things. Like
Yes.
we have new inventions to let us do types of training that normally would be a tough thing to. So like rowing is a great example. Okay, maybe down here in Florida you could do some rowing, but it's going to be hard with the choppy waters. Where you are, yeah, you might have lakes and stuff where you can get a good row in. Um, but now that we have machines like rowing
Yep.
machines, anybody can row. Just go to your gym. Your gym's got three of them sitting there for you. These types of training that we can take advantage of. Um, my Apple Watch giving me a daily breakdown of my steps and my heart rate and all of these things, like monitoring my performance when I work out. Apps that tell us, hey, you're doing this. What did you eat today? Cool. This is your intake. Really nitty gritty. If you want to get super nerdy and nitty gritty with it, you can. And frankly, you can do it relatively easily.
Hmm.
And I think, modern physiological training in martial arts, outside of martial arts, we can maximize now. We can train better than we ever have. And it's a shame when you have so many people who are like, I'm not changing a thing because it's the way we've done it for a
Hmm.
hundred years and we're not changing it after 100. I'm like, cool. You're not maximizing. Like,
Hmm.
science has helped us improve the way we do things. Science is telling us, hey, this is what you want to do. Here's a new way of doing it to get
Hmm.
the same result or better than what you used to do.
I've
Um,
always believed that if the masters, if you could go back and grab any of them, bring them here in the future, show them what we have, they would utilize it.
they
Wouldn't
realize it.
wouldn't you wouldn't you utilize new technology? I wanted to throw 2 cents into something before I forget this thought
Sure.
too. The review and the
Mhm,
importance of having a step by step process. Not only is the review important so the student doesn't forget it, but as the student reviews, they're learning more and more Wing Chun,
mhm.
a system that is principle based. And
Yeah.
so as they review it, they might see something that they've done thousands and thousands of times in a brand new context
Mhm.
and start to find those links in the system
Yeah.
themselves because I'm like, oh God, I'm
Well,
so glad I went over that because this is this and that's that, isn't it? That kind
well,
of
and
stuff.
and the kind of one of the unique things of Wing Chun in a nutshell is that you do Sulum Tao
Hmm.
and then you do Chum Q.
Hmm.
But then you turn around and take what you learned in Chum Q and apply it back to Sulum Tao.
Yep.
Oh, there's more layers to this onion. Well, then you learn BG and you go back to Chum Q and you go back to Sulum Tao. Guess what? More layers to the onion. It has a feedback loop. Then you get on the wooden dummy and you're doing the wooden
Yep.
dummy. And then
Hmm.
it just the feedback loop continues. Wing Chun,
Hmm.
the ingenious way Wing Chun was designed to be its
Hmm.
own feedback loop.
Yes.
Like it
Yeah.
builds on itself and then it feeds right back. It, my Sifu, we always start and end class with Sulam Tao. My Sifu says because everything begins and ends at Sulam Tao.
Yeah.
You do Sulam Tao, you learn everything else, and then you go right back to Sulam Tao and you go,
Hmm.
this form. My Sifu told me he started learning in 73 and he says 73 to 2025. I'm still learning something new from Sulam Tao.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it feeds back on itself so much. But that's the ingenious thing of, like you said, review, like the review. But Wing Chun by design is that way.
Hmm.
And it is built to be that way. It's built to be, like you said, it's a thinking man's art.
Hmm.
Um, and it's such an ingenious, nuanced art of these details. And people look, I think, sometimes look past that because they want the flashy Donnie Yen kind of stuff. And I'm like, cool, but like there's so much nuance to what it is and to what it does and how it functions and how it's applied that you Don't concentrate on the finger or you'll miss all that heavenly glory.
That's exactly right. Don't concentrate on the crappy Chinese made movie. You know,
Yep,
go find see what it's like in person. You
in
know,
person. Yep,
and you know, I guess it would be a little bit like somebody watching the movie Titanic and then
yep,
falling in love with history. You know, the
yep,
real solid history is not going to be the romantic movie in and of itself. But hey,
yep,
you know, it
yep,
is as long as it gets you in the door and you realize that that might be fiction on the big screen, and what you might need to do is, you know, humble yourself and train. This is
yep.
the real life stuff. So
Well, and and that's another another part that I fully agree with Alex on of the shut up and punch, shut up and
yeah.
train.
Hmm.
Just the lip service doesn't need to happen. Just train. What are you here
Hmm.
to do? Train. I train with a group. Did a weekend seminar with a group called the WWA, the World Warrior Alliance, and that it's just a smorgasbord of everything you could think of, martial arts. Little 45-minute sessions,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
it
I
was
like that.
yeah, it was get in. Somebody from this style is going to show you this thing, and for 45 minutes, shut up and train. If you're talking, you're not training. If you're talking, you're not listening. If you're talking, you're not learning. Just be quiet. Just listen to what the coach has to say, and just train, drill, go again and again and again. And that kind of wonderful kind of training. Doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter. It's just train. Just do the thing. You're going to be so much better if you stop talking and just do it. Um, patty cake. Like what do you,
What's on the horizon for you, my friend? What it looks like you've got some more categories now that you could maybe start doing the podcast. Have you thought about kicking the can
um,
around on that again?
yes. I'm actually in the midst of. I have 2 episodes outlined. A series. I put out that questionnaire and I got some good questions from it. So I might do a slight shift in format change of what I'm going to do. I'll have like a quick topic, something I
Oh,
want
I
to talk
love
about,
that. I love
and then
that.
I'll answer and try, go back and answer a couple questions. Um, I have an upcoming topic that I really want to talk about called temper your expectations. Um,
Okay.
because I think even to this day, I think we need to. I can sit here and watch these movies all day,
Yes.
and I've got a lot of them. Oh, trust me, I've got a lot of them.
Awesome.
Um, but that's not real life. And when people watch the movies, they watch TV, they watch this, they get these expectations, and I think there's a real conversation we need to have as people in the society to temper our expectations.
Mhm.
Um, martial arts is not magic. It will not
No.
make you bulletproof. It you aren't we it does not make you Superman. Um, it is it and I think this overcriticalness, and there's a horrific overcriticalness, and it might just be because that's what gets clicks on the internet.
Yeah.
But this overcriticalness of martial arts needing to be a great example of like people just ragging on Aikido. Like, okay, well, what were your expectations of Aikido?
Hmm.
Like, temper your expectations. Like, what is the goal of the training? And we hear that all the time. And I think you kind of alluded to it earlier when you said it's the group, not the style, not the system, but the group. We're all looking to just hang out with cool people. Like at the end of the day, we're just looking to hang out with cool people.
100%.
Um, and people temper your expectations, but more importantly, what martial art should I take? I don't care. Take the one with a group of people you jive with.
Hmm.
Like, that's the biggest piece of like, why do I do Shotokan? Because I jive with the people.
Hmm.
Like, I love to hang out. We do class, we train hard for an hour, hour and a half, and then we go get a couple beers and pizzas afterwards, and we shoot the bull, man.
I
You
love it.
know,
Yeah,
you
totally.
know.
Totally, totally.
It's
Yeah.
it's great group of people. We have fun, and just it. why did I take up Wing Chun? Because I jived with the people. If I had gone and trained with Sifu Rene that one time and was like, "Oh, this guy's kind of a jerk. I ain't coming back," then I wouldn't have gone back.
Right.
But I got there, and it was, the guys I was training with were cool. The teacher was immensely knowledgeable. It was what I was looking for, and I just jived with it. When I went up to New York, if I was like, "Oh man, these New York guys are kind of not cool," well, then guess what? I would have never gone back to New York again.
Right.
But no, I made friends with so many of them. Mikey flew down here for my birthday because he could. He's my boy, my Mikey's my boy. And he's like, I'm like, hey, I'm having a birthday party. He's like, I'm flying down. Made some like real, that's the thing. When you jive with your people, you jive with your people. And that's the most important part. You know, it's 2025, man. It's America. Just guns everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
don't worry about what martial art you're gonna do. If you like jujitsu, cool. If you like Aikido, great. Karate, Wing Chun, Choi Lei Fut, doesn't matter. Do you jive with your people and are you enjoying yourself? Because if you're not enjoying yourself, you're wasting your time.
100%.
You know,
100%.
we time is a limited commodity, and it only becomes more and more apparent as the days go by. You're sitting here a decade ahead of me, and I can and that only feel yeah, but you feel it that
Oh yeah.
time, the more it ticks, the more you realize it's a commodity that, yeah, surprise surprise, they ain't making any more of it.
That's right. That's
So
right.
it,
Speaking of
it
time, I wanted to throw this at you, and we're
yeah,
we're we're kind of looping around our group,
right,
and it doesn't matter what style you train. One of the episodes of Kung Fu Conversations down the road, and if you get inspired to talk about this, please do. And if Sifu Alex or anybody else gets inspired to talk about this, please do. I think one of our big distractions these days, and it's been saved, is the TikTok society. I have nothing against TikTok as a program,
right,
but the concept of it, instant gratification.
yep,
And I really believe that one of the reasons, I mean, you could even say it with modern martial arts too. You are not going to be a professional kickboxer in 5 minutes after watching a video. That's going
nope,
to take years of dedication and training. You are not going to be a professional Western boxer. One of my favorite guys out there, if you ever get bored and you want to see high level teaching when it comes to Western boxing, check out
mhm,
some videos from my boxing coach in France Sands over in the UK. And he's like, yeah, to take an amateur to go pro, you're going to love this. Can you take a guess at how many years it takes?
at least five.
The Chinese decade.
Chinese decade.
Yeah. He's like, it takes me from the time a kid walks into the door to get him to go through the amateur ranks, to get him to be a pro fighter. It's the Chinese decade because they're programming that nervous system to have
Yep.
those split section hair reactions. So
Mhm.
I really believe that a lot of the classical arts that still out there have an answer to that nervous system that we're hardwiring to be redlined all the time.
Yep.
You have to slow down. You have to pay attention to yourself
Yep.
instead of going off into la la land. You have to tune into is my hand in the right position? No,
Mhm.
it's not. No, it's not. Okay, those kind of things. So I think traditional martial arts are a way to tune back into
Yeah.
ourselves.
Well, it's a great, and kind of going back to what do I glean from Shotokan? Wing Chun doesn't have very many stances. You have the Iji
Oh,
Kim Young Ma, and then you have like parallel foot stance this way, parallel foot stance this way,
yeah.
Salkun, like, but karate has, all kinds of different stances. And then you have like the back stance, and the back stance is really tough because you're standing like one foot's this way, one foot's this way. You're making a 90-degree angle, and you know how hard that is to do, especially when you haven't done it, and like you're kind of weighted this way, and like that body awareness of being able to do that is so immensely important. And what are the things I glean from karate? Body awareness through these
Yeah.
tough stances, like
Hmm.
doing, great. Like I can do the Wing Chun till I'm blue in the face, but like having to go into different shapes and like, oh, what's the body awareness of this? Oh, hey, do you know your foot's actually sticking out, not sticking in? Oh, shit, here we go. We gotta fix that. You know, I think, but absolutely, absolutely, and a side note, y'all can find me on Xiaohongshu. Um,
Awesome. Where
uh,
where can we find you?
the red note, Xiaohongshu.
Zhao Hongju. Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Xiaohongshu.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I will say, social media is a weird thing.
Mhm.
Humans aren't designed for it. We invented it. We're kind of now reaping the unfortunate backlash of our own creation here. Um, but it can be a force for good if you do it correctly. Um, and if you understand, like, and that's the other thing is that this, I think you have a good point there because I see it all the time of like kids who are like, oh, I'm going to be a YouTuber or I'm going to be a Twitch streamer. Kid, no, you're not. Like,
That's not a
again,
thing yet.
temper your expectations. But like, we have a society where everyone's a content creator. If you have a
Yeah.
phone in your pocket, you're a content creator.
Hmm.
Period. Um, and everybody wants that engagement for whatever reason, whether it's that dopamine hit or financial because you have enough followers to get paid out for it. Um, but it is one of those where I think, you know, we have lost kind of that connection to self. And Rick Hutton really talks about this is why he keeps going with this traditional karate thing because he's like as a kid in the 70s when I started learning it, I thought there was really something unique here about self and learning about myself and training and that slower pace, slowing down, taking a look, reflecting back on myself. And he says, it's kind of a it was kind of a counterculture thing then, and it's kind of a counterculture thing now.
Amen. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
It's funny too because you think about high level martial artists back even 200 to 300 years in China, and they
Yeah,
were rare back then too. So
yeah.
I guess it's always been something of a bit of an enigma for the weirdos, if you will.
Yeah. I
Where
have
where do you? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
a friend of mine who's a psychology professor, also a martial artist, and he said, "Man, we are a weird group of people to psychoanalyze." Because he's like, "We're those kids who wanted to be athletic, but we didn't want to do team sports." And, like,
Yeah, yeah. I did football, but I was bad at it. But I was bad at football. I was bad at all of it. But I did wrestling too, and I didn't really understand discipline until I started working for my dad. One and two, doing wrestling, and I loved my coach because I remember him. He's like, it's individual, but the team is behind you, and I'd never felt that connection to that kind of group, and that
well,
was where I started was with wrestling.
and that's also kind of the irony of martial arts of it's individual, but you can't really get good at it without a group.
Yep. 100%. 100%. So what's going on? Tell me what's going on right now. Where can we find
Um,
you? What if somebody
Perfect.
wanted to come train with you?
Hit me up on the socials. If you want to find me on it. I would say Instagram's probably the best place to find me. There's two pages you can check. You can check that other Wing Chun guy on Instagram, or you can check Wing Chun SRQ.
What does that
Um,
stand for?
SRQ. Okay, that is the call sign for the Bradenton Sarasota Airport.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
I was
I was
like,
always wondering that. I'm like, what is
yeah.
that?
What do I call my school? What do I call my club now that I've taken over? I teach in Bradenton and Sarasota, so SRQ. Um, it was like it's kind of thing. There's a bunch of businesses around here who all do like plumbing SRQ or windows. It's a thing around here. But like SRQ, that's the school. It's Bradenton, Sarasota, Wing Chun, Bradenton, Sarasota. Um,
I love it.
so well, and the other piece of that is there is a Bradenton Wing Chun was a friend of mine, and then there was Sarasota Wing Chun, which was my teacher. So I was like, well, I can't use either of those, but I can use SRQ. Just don't tell the airport. I don't want them to sue me. So yeah, that's what it stands for. Those are probably the best ways to find me. You can find me here on YouTube, Topher 9000. Um, and I just hit me up on the socials. That's the easiest way to find me. Every time I talk to people, I connect with people hit me up. I'm out here. I'm a pretty open dude. I don't know. Social media, Instagram is probably the best place to find me, though. That's where you're gonna
Aw-
get all the goods anyway.
Awesome. Awesome. I've got about 5 minutes. My old man bladder's got to start heading towards the restroom. Is there anything you'd like to share with the audience? Wrap up, whether it be for teaching, whether it be for training, whether it be for projects, whatever you want to do. Leave the outro, my friend.
I would say, in all honesty, just do what you do. Enjoy what you do. If you don't enjoy it, find something else. Um,
Yeah. Amen.
if
Amen.
if you're teaching, teach the best you can.
Mhm.
And here's the thing: don't be afraid to start doing it. It just there's no time like right now, so just start doing it. I have guys who train with me who are in their 60s, and they're like, you know what? I wanted to do martial arts, so here I am.
That's beautiful.
There they are. They're doing it. Um, we only got one shot at it, so do it.
I
And
love
I
it.
would say, just like I said, man, just do what you do, enjoy it, love it, embrace it. And if you stop loving it, stop doing it.
Fair enough. Like
Yep,
you said, time is finite.
time is finite. So train, have fun, be good. Be good to your to quote a famous Sarasotan, Jerry Springer, be good to yourselves and each other.
Amen. Amen. And what the irony of that too? The irony of that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Well, Topher, I'm gonna leave you. Thank you so much for your time today. This went far better than I thought, and I hope to talk to you in the future. Um,
absolutely.
and and tomorrow, like I said, the YouTube stuff posts a day later. I will post it with your YouTube page, and then on the Instagram, and then I'll also, I know you've got a SoundCloud page for the
Yep.
podcast. Hopefully, we're gonna have some episodes coming out sooner than later.
Yep.
So, and people can get a hold of you and hopefully train with you. I hope to meet you
Yeah.
someday in person. That's on my personal
Absolutely.
agenda. And
Awesome.
keep swinging those burgers. I hope to meet you at the Burger Pit. What is it, the
That's where I'll
Snake
be
Pit?
tomorrow. Shake Pit.
Shake Pit. That's a great
Shake
name.
Pit.
That
That's
is a
where I'll
great
be
name.
tomorrow.
Have a blessed
Hey,
one, my
that's
friend.
not a
Yes, go
problem.
ahead.
Just another little note. Stay humble.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you do. People like I have a good day job. I have my Wing Chun stuff going on. Once a week, I still go flip the burgers to stay humble.
Yeah, but it's fun too, though, isn't
It's
it?
fun too. Oh yeah.
I love it. I
All
love
right,
it.
brother.
Have a blessed day, my friend.
You as well.
Talk to you soon, sir.
See ya.
All right.